Well, hi everyone. I'm John Ritland, and this is my review of WWE Smackdown from Vancouver, British Columbia. It's the Valentine's Day episode, time to celebrate VD. Maybe don't do that, just celebrate Valentine's Day. Quick note, whether you have somebody, whether you don't have somebody, I hope that you guys had a good Valentine's Day. Remember, it's important to really love yourself. Self-love is the most important thing. It was not intended to be a dirty joke, but I'm just going to roll with it. In all seriousness, doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or not. Be happy with yourselves. That's what really matters. So, yeah, we just didn't have much on this show, unfortunately. There was some good stuff for the women, but a lot of it really felt phoned in, and there were a couple other things I didn't really care for. So this is not going to be a terribly long review. 20 minutes later. We get a moment of bliss, and Nikki and Alexa talk celebrity crushes. Nikki guesses that Alexa's is Brad Pitt. Nikki won't reveal hers. Okay, I don't know what that was about. It was weird. And here's Carmella. She's hyping up the match she's going to have with Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship. And Alexa says this one line. It was the most horribly scripted line because Alexa's actually not that bad on the mic. You had quite the verbal altercation with Bayley on social media. That is not how human beings talk. Maybe that's the way they talk in the Land of Oz where Alexa is from, but that's not the way that human beings normally talk. It's a short joke. It's a short joke. So Bayley comes down and she, just cuts down the crowd, cuts down Carmella, says, yeah, we were friends, but I took pity on you. I'm a role model. I'm going to do all da-da-da-da-da-da. Carmella says, hey, why don't we have that match? And they have the match, and it starts off the match. You can tell Bruce Pritchard did not write this portion because it treated the women, with a bit of respect, and they actually gave the match some good time because Bruce Pritchard does not like women's wrestling. Same with Vince. I'm pretty convinced that neither of them really respect the women, and SmackDown has really been phoning it in with the women lately. So maybe they brought in somebody good that actually cares about women's wrestling here. This match was actually pretty good. Bayley was clearly the ring general here. She did carry quite a bit of this. I will say something that I never thought I'd say, even though there's been moments where Carmella has actually had some decent performances. She held up her end of the bargain here. It was actually a really good women's match, especially for TV. This actually could have been pay-per-view quality. They spent a lot of time on this. There was about 30 to 35 minutes devoted to the women, which actually wasn't the worst thing in the world. Because even though there were only 3 matches, at least they dedicated a quarter of the show to the women. And that's saying something. And they had something else involving a woman a little bit later that I'll get to that I didn't really like. But I gotta say, I enjoyed this match. And it's not turning me into a Carmella fan. No, Jesus Christ, not one bit. But I will say that she did well here. Is that going to continue? Maybe, maybe not. Who the fuck knows? But Bayley shows that she can get a lot out of a little, and that's what she did here. So, this was a fine women's match. This was really well done. This was a fine title match in general. They were hungry. They wanted to kick off the show right, and they did. And this crowd was fucking tremendous the whole damn night. Now I'm going to get into some chants a little bit later. But we had some moments like Bayley to Belly for 2. We had her run off the ropes by Carmella for 2. The code of silence. Oh no, suddenly Carmella's going to win. Nope, Bayley manages to get out of another variation and then get her feet on the ropes 1, 2, 3. Then she attacks Carmella and then beats her up. And then here comes Naomi with another color in her hair. I assume this is just going to be something where she does coloring in her hair to coordinate with her outfits. And hey, if it works for her and she enjoys it and the fans love it, that's great. I just hope she doesn't do what I did and damage my hair horribly by coloring it. But Naomi's been rocking it since she came back, and I hope she gets a chance to be in a featured match at WrestleMania. So, dedicated to the women. And then, unfortunately, we have everything come to a screeching halt with recaps of Corbin beating up the production guy and then pouring beer on a plant. And he's banned from... he's fined, and he's banned from competing on SmackDown. And they emphasize that because, unfortunately, he shows up later. Kayla interviews Bayley. I'm defending the title at Super Showdown. Okay, I didn't expect that. She's going to be defending it against either Carmella or Naomi, probably both. That's interesting. That's interesting. I'm not going to put over the whole thing as the Saudi Arabian government finally, starting to sort of do stuff with the women properly. And hopefully nobody throws, drinks or anything at the women. Jesus Christ, that was disrespectful. Disrespectful little shits that did that. But if the women are comfortable with it, cool. And I hope that they can have a good match at the show. The show's still going to probably be shit, but I digress. So we then get Otis. We have a Lacey video package. Lacey is going to have an interview next week. I don't know what the fuck's going on. They're in Arizona, Glendale, Arizona. But she talks about having fans write letters to her, and she puts some letters in her boots. Like one, she talks about one that a fan was talking about getting over parents who were addicted, and that she wouldn't get addicted. She heard Lacey's story, and she found that inspiring. Don't turn Lacey heel after this. I fear that they're going to do that, and it's just going to be terrible because she's getting over as a babyface. Keep her, at least hot for the mid card, and then build her back up and have her win the championship at some point. So then we get Otis talking out his text. Don't know who does that, but whatever. He's getting ready for his date with Mandy. Sheamus versus Cruz and Gable. And his name is Chad Gable. I don't fucking care what anybody says. It happened. They tried to double team things. That didn't work. And Cruz got pinned because Black History Month. So Sheamus pinning Cruz. And then we get a Carmella interview. She demands a rematch. And she mentions Fox. Mentions all this because WWE's on Fox, if you didn't fucking know. And we get recaps of Goldberg and his streak that was totally legit, never inflated. They never inflated the numbers on WCW TV. I watched it live during the Monday Night Wars, and I knew they fucking inflated it. But still, it was a cool thing to see at the time. And also, it was just a hype Goldberg versus The Fiend later. Oh, and then, speaking of Black History Month, hey, here's Hogan in all black. Racist grandpa's at it again. Look, I know why they did it, and I will say that as far as what they could have done with Hogan, this is probably the best they could have done, because he did it via satellite, because he was probably going, well, I don't know if he would have gotten booed by this crowd, but the vast majority of crowds, he would have gotten booed quite a bit. Hogan also was hoping before the Hall of Fame that he could get the N and NWO to be changed to something else that he would be more comfortable with. Yeah, that's right, I went there. I'm not going to forgive him, because guess what? There's a difference between being, sorry that you got caught and actually mean sorry. Be careful what you say on camera. Be careful what you say when cameras are around, whatever the variation is. That ain't an apology, Hulk. But he talks about Goldberg. He talks about The Fiend. And then the whole preceding announcement has been paid for by the New World Order thing. See, I thought I was going to rant about this thing about Hogan, but this Fiend thing actually made it more entertaining. I thought the whole preceding announcement paid for by the New World Order. It's the FFH, Firefly Funhouse, and I'm ashamed to admit that made me laugh because it triggered my nostalgia, vein, but also made me laugh because it was pretty funny. And he feeds Choco to the pig and says, I hope it's not too sweet. I'm again ashamed to admit that I laughed at this stuff, but Bray is fully in on this. And mentions the Hulk, he could see him soon, but he says Hogan says about facing Goldberg, he's like, well, I don't need luck. I have the Fiend. They're gonna have the Fiend lose to Goldberg at Super Showdown, aren't they? They're gonna have that happen, and everybody's going to rage. I'm going to hate it. Hogan did also have his name on a chair like on a stage, like on an acting set. He's apparently living in a merchandise shop now, and it had Boomer below, so I thought that was kind of funny. Then this week in history, Rock returns in February 2011 to Raw, and we need to be reminded of Michael Cole, heel Michael Cole, no less. No, we don't fucking need to be reminded of that. And then we get Sammy and Cesaro, a protest concert. And Sammy doing tiptoe through the tulips and, a Tiny Tim impression, in case you don't know. He actually didn't do that, but Cesaro had a cowbell. And, of course, the crowd starts chanting, "We want cowbell." Bravo to this crowd. This crowd is fucking tremendous. Cesaro was doing that. Elias comes out, glitchy for 2 seconds again. Guess Fiend's taking over. They were chanting "Walk with Elias" like the British fans did. Cesaro throws away the cowbell after the fans chant "We want cowbell." And they attack, and here's Braun to make the save. Braun tosses some security guys, aka local enhancement talents. One of them was Jet 2Fly, Jet Knight. Jet 2Fly with 2 Ys on Twitter. Jet Knight's a local guy that he's wrestled in other promotions as well, but I've seen him a lot in the past number of months at Without a Cause shows and Defy Northwest Wrestling, and the guy's fucking tremendous. It was cool, and I should have known. See, I didn't recognize him without the jacket and everything, without the outfit, because he was in basic security gear, but I was like, that looks like him. And it was, and I could tell because he got more air than most people would because he's just that goddamn talented. So should that actually have been him, and I'm pretty certain it was, great. Great, and I'm happy for him, and hopefully if he's at the next show that I go to, I can say, hey, thanks for... Or it's like, hey, that's really cool that you got to be on Smackdown. Anyway, this is not going to take much longer because guess what? A Cena video package. He's back in 2 weeks. Whoop-a-doo. Bayley will defend her championship, as I said, and we get the Otis Mandy date. Otis goes to arrive. Mandy's been waiting at the restaurant for a while, and Ziggler shows up before Otis gets there, and they're sitting, but Mandy doesn't kick him away, and Otis sees that, and is like, oh, his heart's breaking. You can see the moment his heart breaks. I don't care about this feud. We don't need another fucking romance angle that gets cucked and destroyed and everything. This is not going to lead to a very interesting feud between Otis and Ziggler. I'm sorry, but at this point in 2020, Ziggler does not need to be around. And the Otis Mandy thing, I don't really care about. Sorry, I didn't really care. Now, I'm not saying I'm happy that Otis got his heart broken, but I didn't care. I didn't care one bit. And now we're gonna get to the main event. But Morrison and Miz, they run down the Usos and Reigns, and it's Morrison and Miz versus Roman Reigns and a mystery partner. It's Daniel Bryan. They have a fine match. The match wasn't that bad. Corbin also shows up before this and has a ticket, sits front row, so he won't interfere in anything. He won't attack at the end. Basically what happens is, Reigns gets the pin. And then Corbin attacks Reigns, and his throne just suddenly happens to be there. Even though he was banned from competing and there was no reason for him to show up, his throne just happens to be on the stage. Bit of a logic loophole, but whatever. I know it's going to sound like I was really harsh on this show. Now, 3 matches, that's no excuse. I don't care how phoned in this was. You could have had another match instead of all this talking. But there were some entertaining moments. However, I got to say C. And here's why I'm going to say C. Because outside of the women's stuff, and outside of, the Firefly Funhouse, thing, stuff like that, and the hot crowd, this is a very basic show. So that's all I'm going to say. C. Anyway, maybe a poll above my head. Who the fuck knows? Anyway, like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland, and I will be back for NXT TakeOver Portland.